that's not it. Oh, I don't know where I'm going. And here we go again, even though I really miffed that. And with us, joining us tonight is Retr0joe from Manchester, United Kingdom, correct?
Yes, correct.
Well,
Hello.
thank you for being on and joining us and all that. It's been a pleasure chatting with you the past couple of weeks and all. So, and of course, with me is my culprit in crime all the time, Mr. John Klinkle. How you doing, sir? John, did you mute yourself?
You know
Yes.
what? I did.
About to say, too quiet there. Too quiet. Too
Yes.
quiet. So, anyways, Retr0joe, I understand that you and John Klinkle had an excellent conversation a week or two back or something like that.
Yep.
Went on for a long time, and my understanding is what you've talked about before in our text and all that, is that you seem to have a feel for the pulse of the arcade scene in the United Kingdom. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is that John and I, we are arcade gamers. We're both really good at Galaga. Last night, I wasn't streaming on Twitch, but I was actually trying to go for. Hold on one second. Gotta adjust my mic here. Last night, I was actually trying to go for a personal best on Burger Time for 5 million points, and for some reason, that 5 million point threshold is like very, very hard for me to actually break and all that good stuff. So tell us about what the arcade scene is in like the United Kingdom and where you live at and all.
Well, I find myself quite lucky being quite close to Arcade Club. The scene isn't as big as it was in the 90s because a lot of, it's more like little gambling machines now with claw machines and, the penny pushing machines, stuff like that have took over. But there's a big resurgence now with privately owned arcades, which is quite good. It's a better feel, really, because there's people going there who actually like to game, and there's nothing worse than going to an arcade back in the day and have some little kid running around trying to get money out of out of the coin slots as you try to concentrate and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty decent these days.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. Yeah, that's kind of the unfortunate thing about like where I live and all that. Now, granted, I've got dedicated arcades and all that. Barcades actually. Well, I can't say barcade, can I, John? Because that's like trademark.
Arcade bar.
Yeah, arcade bar. Nonsense trademark thing. But anyways, the deal is that it's actually gotten a lot better than what it used to. Excuse me. It's gotten a lot better in the United States as far as what it used to be. Because like I know like. I'd say sometime for me in the mid 90s, that's when I noticed that the arcade scene was kind of going down and all that after like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2 had their run and all that. And then pretty much, I think the beginning of the end, as I saw it, was when they started putting Dance Dance Revolutions in arcades. And not that that's a bad game to anybody who plays Dance Dance Revolution, but like I look at that, and that's a machine that takes up a lot of floor space. Takes up, I don't know how many units, John? Like something like 2 or 3. Well, one Dance Dance Revolution could take up like what 2 or 3 cabinets or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah, pretty big. So I know that was the beginning of the end for arcades where I lived, as well as like having like the big mechanical like ride things. Now, of course, racing. I live in Indiana, and obviously racing's pretty big here and all that. So you had your racing arcade simulators, but those took up a whole lot of space. So it just kind of depends and all that. So let me ask you something then. As you said, it's coming back in United Kingdom. So what's your favorite arcade game, if I may ask?
That's a hard one. I do love Street Fighter 2, but I always remember back in the day as a kid when you had no money left after you spent all the coins what your parents had given you. The one I used to sit and stare at for hours was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just that, and even the Simpsons arcade as well. When you had no money left, and while your folks are still putting the 2p's in the little slot machines, you used to have to sit there and watch for hours, even though you had no money. But I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was mine because I also had two brothers as well. So anything that was more than two-player was really good for me.
So group beat 'em ups then. That's so like also I imagine that like X-Men would be a big one with you too as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Definitely.
No,
Yeah.
I absolutely I loved definitely loved X-Men, and I have very fond memories of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. To say that I played it whenever it got big, when all that stuff was getting big and all that. You try to explain that to like somebody who's young, and they just really, really don't get it and all that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, no. So as you said, the group beat 'em ups and all that. What about like any shooters or anything like that? Like, of course, you're talking to Galaga players here, so.
You see, I'm quite old school. I love Pac-Man. I love, obviously Gallagher is massive. I was saying to John in the chat, I'm a bit younger than you guys, so I didn't really experience the height of all the classics. But I remember having Ridge Racer Revolution for the PlayStation 1.
Yep.
And at the start of that game, it's Gallagher, the loading screen. And that was pretty much my first experience with Gallagher. And I think out of them all, even Space Invaders and Galaxon, is it called? I think Gallagher's probably my favourite one out of them shooters.
Now, John's a Galaxian player, actually, and pretty decent one. I mean, the thing is, Galaxian's hard. I mean, because of the fact that you only get one shot per screen, and pretty much, if you use up your shot, you're done. You're toast. You know what I mean?
Much slower pace.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I always had trouble. For one thing, the slowness is always what got to me and all that, so that's very, very cool. So tell us, I know that last week we had Mark Schultz on, and Mark Schultz is actually a friend of ours, John and myself. I actually the first person that I met in the greater Galaga community was actually Mark Schultz, and he was telling me about the arcade that he went to, and I think you said that it was like something like 2 or 3 levels or something like that. Tell us about that arcade. What is the name? What is the place? Tell us all about it.
It's called Arcade Club. It's in Bury. We call it Greater Manchester, but it's just on the outskirts of Manchester, pretty much. And it's really good to see one of the floors, which has got all the old 80s arcade cabinets dedicated. It's like they blacked it out, so it's like pretty much pitch black in there, and the only light you can see are from the arcade cabinets. And it's just a cool experience just to walk around that floor on its own. I'll link you to a video filmed on Twitter when I went there. I just did the whole walk round of that floor, and then on the other floor, it's got like a lot of foreign like Japanese arcade games, which is quite modern ones, which is quite cool. And then on one other floor as well, you've got all the big arcade cabinets, like with Time Crisis and the rally Sega Rally and stuff like that. And it's just a really good place, and the food is gorgeous as well. And you can get beers as well there, so it's a really good day.
Excellent.
All night.
So that's really cool. Really cool. How long's that been? So how long has that been around, if I may ask? I mean, is this something that's been just kind of came up in the past 5 years, or what's the story? Has it always been? Because John, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Galloping Ghost has always, I mean, for the most part, it's always been. Is that correct?
About 2010.
I 10 years. I hate saying this. I know this sounds bad, but 10 years is kind of a long time for any business nowadays. So, uh, so this place that you're talking about, how long has it been? Is it just something recent, or?
It's fairly new. It's only about 3 years. About 3 years. I know they started off with a smaller arcade, and then they moved. I think they've still got the smaller one open. They've got a new one open in Leeds now as well. But this, I think the Berry one is the biggest one. But it's only about 3 years old, and but every time I've been, it's been awesome, and it's good because I think after a certain time they do actually kit the kids out. So and then just us adults can just like get down on them.
No, relive the old glory days and all that stuff. And I'm hearing on that. So, no, that's really cool. So, I imagine because for John and I, because the country that we live in and all that, we've pretty much only border two countries, and that's, or I should say, I mean, for John, I mean, he's, his state is bordered right next up to Canada. And actually, for where he would enter into Canada, which would be at Detroit or what is it? Detroit or Port Huron. Basically, those entry points lead you onto the road to basically metropolitan Canada. And for me, that's about a 5-hour drive away from where I live. So the reason why I'm bringing that all up is, what are you do you have any kind of familiarity with the European, like the greater European arcade experience? What is that like, if I may ask?
Not really as such, but I've been on quite a bit of holidays when I was younger, like to Spain and to Portugal, but they was in the 90s, and obviously arcades in the 90s for me was like at its peak.
Yeah.
But every time I went over to like Spain, I can always remember they always had this. They had these punching machines.
Okay.
Where you take a picture of your face and you put on and you punch the machine. But I don't really remember seeing. I don't really went into it. Sorry, I didn't get into a massive arcade over there. This was always in bars and stuff. And I always remember a soccer game as well over there. I think it was Tenco. I think it was by the company. And I always remember. I think I saw that soccer game in every single country. Every one I went in Europe, I saw that game. And the only other time I went to France once, and they had a time crisis, but it was a different time crisis. It was one with the machine gun. I forgot what that one was called though. But other than that, I'd not really been to a massive arcades in Spain or anything like that, or know how big of a scene it is really over there.
See, that's something I've always wondered because, how I actually practice my arcade gaming is using MAME, and I do know that multiple arcade machine emulator, and if I'm not mistaken, I think a lot of the coders and developers for that are actually from Italy, believe it or of all places, from Italy. I think the main ones, from what I understand, and it kind of begs the question of well, why would somebody devote their time to something like that? I mean, those guys are Italian. Why would they devote their time to coding that particular piece of software if there wasn't a big scene, a big arcade scene in Italy, just for Italy? That's kind of like, that's where I'm trying to like figure out is like, for John and I, we do know what it's like in the United States. Also, we kind of have a good idea. John probably a better idea than I, and as well as the current Galaga the overall Galaga world record holder right now, Jordan Dorrington, because he was actually flown over to Australia to play in Gala, which was a big Galaga event. So we know that it's big in Australia. At least that's my perception, that it is big in Australia. Definitely, it's making a big comeback in the United States with places like Galloping Ghost in Chicago, where I'm from, Tapper's Arcade Bar in Indianapolis, and also we've got some other places too, like even from where I'm originally from in southern Indiana, right on the Ohio River. There's actually two arcades that are actually, well, one is already open, and then another one is being opened on the other side of town and all that. And that's actually a small city of like maybe 150,000 people. So, it is interesting seeing this interest in these old games, and for me, I would really love to know, like, what is it like, like with what you and Mark have described of your place, and then it kind of begs the question, like, I feel like it's this big, great unknown, if that makes any sense. And I'll tell you one place, probably the place John and I do need to go to, is because I used to live in Canada. And also we got a Galaga contact up there as well. Where was he from, John? I think he was from.
What's that? It's the same name as.
It's not. It's not Oxford, or it's not.
Cambridge.
Yeah, I think there is a Cambridge, Ontario.
Yep.
Or Cambridge, Ontario, or another college that's named after Cambridge or something like that. He's actually a professor.
Right.
Yeah. The thing is that there's a very good Galaga player we know of, basically in the metropolitan corridor of Canada, and we're kind of interested in thinking well, whenever I lived up there, that was in the mid to late 2000s, so there was no kind of retro scene at all, really. So it begs the question: is there a big, great unknown with some of these places, if that makes any sense? So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be a great trip. I think there's a lot of great trips that would be fun to make. I think Spain, like Retr0joe mentioned, I know there's a couple decent-sized arcades there now, and I've actually been in contact with them. One of them through Armando, because I don't speak the language, so but. Really neat. There's arcades all over. Even in Afghanistan, you can find video games.
Oh my goodness. So Retr0joe, obviously your name implies what you're hopefully into and all that, and this is what a shared interest. So, I imagine that you're more interested in, or not more interested, but you're also interested in other retro gear. So, what's your favorite console, if I may ask? Retro console.
I love the SNES. Sorry, SNES.
You're good. No, you're good. I've heard it pronounced different ways. The SNES, NES, NES. Nah, yeah. You're good. Favorite game on the NES or the SNES?
It's got to be Mario Kart. Just because it was a game me and my brothers all played, and we used to play the winner or pass the pad, we used to call it. And it was battle modes we used to play the most, not the races. And where you burst the balloons, but it was an actual game where my dad used to play with us as well. So it was quite rare to get my dad to sit down to play with it, because my dad's quite getting on now. He's quite old, so he wasn't really. He come before the gaming scene kicked off,
right?
Pretty much.
Cool. Nah, that's really, really cool and all that. So is just the SNES the only retro console you've only owned, or any others that you have favorites on?
That's the thing. I always pick the SNES because that was the first pretty much memory where I used to play with my brothers. But I do like the PlayStation 1, the Sega Mega Drive. I pretty much like them all, to be fair, because I always remember in the playground you either had one or the other. Someone had the PlayStation, someone had the N64, someone had the Genesis or Mega Drive, someone had the SNES. It was always that camaraderie. But when I grew older and I had enough money, I bought them consoles what I didn't have, and it turned out they were just as good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, no, absolutely. I mean, for me, my retro solution is actually my Raspberry Pi. Actually, from if I'm not mistaken, that's a British invention, or I should say British product, the Raspberry Pi and all. So.
They've actually got a shop over here open, like a proper store.
Hey, Joe. We switched to chat mode, Retr0joe, and Joseph Piscitelli, our other friend, he's saying hello. So, hi, Joe. How are you doing? So,
hey.
So the thing is, so you owned them all and all that. So obviously, as you said, the SNES was, close to your heart and all that. So, for you, what did it for the SNES? Is it just the gameplay, the quality? Because I will say that, with my Raspberry Pi, I've got access to pretty much from Super Nintendo to Sega to NES to some Nintendo 64. to some PlayStation and all that. Like I've got a bunch of retro consoles. Heck, I even got a 3DO on there, which quite honestly, it's interesting in that it was the first 30. I think it was the first 32-bit system in like 92 or 93, but not really my
It's
cup
like
of-
a laser disc.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question is that what was it with the SNES then? Was it just that I know for some people growing up for me, like it was either pretty much either committed to like a SNES or a Sega. I think for me and my brother, like we actually eventually did get a Super Nintendo, but we actually got the Sega Genesis first. So,
Right, okay.
so what was it for you? Was it just because of the fact that it was the first one that you got, or what made you commit to the SNES, if I may ask?
I think that with two brothers as well, we always got a game for our birthdays and a game for Christmas. We always asked for a game. So I got a game for my birthday, but we shared all the games. So I got a game for my birthday. My little brother got a game for his birthday. My older brother got a game. So that's 3 games. And every Christmas, we got a game for Christmas, a game each. So that's 6 games a year we used to get, like split between us. I've actually got the box here full of them. So I don't know if you can see. Like, it's quite a big box.
Oh yeah.
And they actually full to the brim of Super Nintendo games. And I do think as well, I love the music on that system, the sound quality on that system. I do really like the Sega Mega Drive, but I never got the same buzz as I got listening to the music, because I do think sometimes music does like make a lot for a game. And I don't know, I think that and the PlayStation 1's my favourite console. I'm a bit nostalgic for the Super Nintendo because my brothers now they don't live here, with us anymore. Like my dad's getting older, he doesn't play it anymore. And the reason I do like the Super Nintendo, it just takes me back to that happy time when we was all together as a family, just playing video games, pretty much.
Oh no, I hear you. No, same thing goes for me with my brother. With my brother and all, playing all the games and all that. I mean, still to this day, I actually built him a Raspberry Pi, and whenever I go down to his house and all that, I mean, we'll spend hours playing like the classic games, whether it's a Sega Genesis game or a Super Nintendo game. I will say though, for me, I do think that the Super Nintendo was actually I think the console that I preferred, because I think that, quite honestly, like just I think about like all the different games I played on it, like Top Gear 2. That's one of my favorite. I'm a big racing.
That's actually I've got two Super Nintendos. This was my original one from the 90s, and it actually died. And I sent it away to a company to get it fixed, and they fix it all up.
So I'm sorry. I'm
it's
like
actually got lights on the bottom.
Okay, so you need to show us that, because I have never seen. Is that a legit Super Nintendo, or is that like some kind of repro type thing?
It's a real Super Nintendo, but it's customed. They painted it up for me.
Okay.
And it's got LED lights on the bottom of it as well.
So that
LED lights.
So that was, hold on, that's really, really cool. So that was actually manufactured by a Nintendo right there?
It's a real Super Nintendo, but I sent it off to a custom company because it broke, and I said, could you bring it back to life for me? And they actually painted parts of it red, and then put the LED lights on the bottom.
What company does that? That's really cool.
Yeah.
They're called Extreme Consoles. They're on Twitter. They do a lot of stuff. But they even did the hand painted me Sega Mega Drive as well. The Genesis. So this is pretty much hand painted Sonic. And that every time I show this, people say, "Oh, it's the wrong Sonic. That's a Dreamcast Sonic." But that's my favourite version of Sonic. They're really good company. Check them out on Twitter, Extreme Consoles. They're really, really good. And
what's the name of the company again?
Extreme Consoles?
Extreme Consoles, yeah.
Okay.
Where are they based out of? Are they in the UK also?
Yeah, they're in the UK, yeah. I think they're in Newcastle, I think.
Well, that
That's
sounds really cool. I'm going
that
to
is
write that down.
yeah, that is really cool. Because like whenever I looked at it, I was like, whoa, because you never know like what kind of like whenever I was looking at it, I was like, oh my god, is that some kind of I'm like thinking, well, because I don't live in the United Kingdom, and I'm thinking, God, that looks, it's kind of like looking at like the Japanese Famicom, and actually comparing that to the regular old Nintendo that came out in 1985 in the United States. I was like, you look at the two, they play. I mean, obviously they don't play the same exact cartridges, but they play the same exact games, and it's like, whoa! Whenever you showed that, it's like, is that some kind of European thing, some kind of UK thing? Because I was like blown away. I was like, whoa,
Oh yeah.
what the heck's going on? You know what I mean? So,
Well, I got a bit carried away there. I was going to say I've got two Super Nintendos. I've got this one. I've got one in my front room underneath the telly. It's actually got Top Gear 2 in it.
Oh,
It's one of my most played games.
That John, have you ever played Top Gear 2 on Super Nintendo?
Probably. I don't know. I mean, again,
I've
played so many games.
So it is an excellent. Now, Top Gear 3 or Top Gear 3000. There's no Top Gear 3. They went from 2 to 3000, like no joke. Trying to be cute and all that. Top Gear 3000's horrible because of the fact that they're trying to make it all like futuristic and all this stuff. Top Gear 1 is a good game, but I think where they really nailed it is Top Gear 2. It's actually 2-player. You can play 2-player, or you can play just 1-player. But the deal is that you're racing, racing these sports cars and whatnot, going to these different locations. Is it raining? Is it dry? Is it desert? All that kind of stuff. And then as you win races, you win money and you upgrade your car. Upgrade your engine, upgrade your transmission, upgrade your nitro. Really, 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 really cool game. Definitely check it out. For anybody who hasn't checked that out, it is a fun. You'll lose hours playing that game. A really great game. That out of all games, I think. Who did that? That was SMK or SNK or who made that?
I think so. I could grab the cartridge and check if you want.
No, you're good. I think it.
SNK.
SN. John, you don't like SNK?
No. I was just saying, you said SMK or SNK.
Did they make the Neo Geo SNK? Or?
No, not Grand Theft Auto, Joe Piscitelli. So, not Grand Theft Auto. Well, no, excellent. Like out of all racing games, that one, like there are just certain racing games that when you got it nailed, you got it nailed, and that's actually one of them. Top Gear 2 for the Super Nintendo, excellent game. So, but anyways, going back to what I was saying, yeah, I was drawn to the Super Nintendo just because of like the racing games. And granted, I love the Genesis too. Heck, one of the best 2-player games that you can play is Toe Jam and Earl, the first one.
Yeah.
And actually, Toe Jam and Earl Panic and Funkotron, that's actually a good game too. Granted, I like the first one and all that just because I don't know what the developers were thinking when they made that game. I'd like to know what they were on, but I'll tell you,
Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah, the original Toe Jam and Earl.
Have you seen them? You think the same thing now? The new one that's come out, you should see them on Twitter. They've brought out their own Twitter handle, and it just sounds like they're on drugs. Some of the stuff they tweet, it's hilarious. Just like having beef with different gaming Twitter handles like Bubsy the Bobcat and stuff like that. They just send them abuse.
I'll have to check that out, man. So what about Retr0joe? Any PC gaming on your end?
Well, this is what we're just about to get onto. Another reason why the Super Nintendo, why I loved it. We didn't have a PC until later on in life, until about 1999.
Right.
And the first PC I had was a Celeron, and it had a Voodoo 2 graphics card, and the game that come with it was
probably
Unreal.
Unreal. Okay.
And but we didn't have a PC. It was our friends who had a PC, and we used to go around to their house and watch them play the game, maybe get a chance on it. But the game, one of the reasons why the Super Nintendo was my favorite is because of Doom. We never had a PC, so the closest thing we could get to play Doom was on the Super Nintendo. And I remember when I got this on my 8th birthday, thanks Dad for getting me this on my 8th birthday. It's not for 8-year-olds, but it was brilliant just to play Doom, like without watching your friend play it. But yeah, PC games. I think my favourite PC game. It's got to be Quake 2 for me, for shoot 'em ups on PC. Quake 2, Unreal, Half-Life, stuff like that. Do anything shoot 'em up. I love them on PC. Even Dark Forces, that was a really good game as well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. The original both of them were actually pretty good. Dark Forces 1 and Dark Forces 2. I think it was, what was it? Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct? Or
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Actually, Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight was the thing that made me up and get a better graphics card, actually, instead of using like a stock, whatever, cheap VGA compatible or whatever. But yeah, no. Whenever I got that game, that's what actually prompted me to get a better graphics card. Excellent game. So, of course, for me, as John already knows, and we talked about in one of our episodes, the greatest game of all time is actually a MS-DOS game. I consider myself an MS-DOS gamer before anything, and that's the greatest game to me of all time is Sid Meier's Pirates. Don't know if you ever played. So you said it's a classic. Which version have you played though?
I love the original one. I actually played it on the Apple. One of my friends had an Apple, so it's a bit different, obviously, because it's all in black and white and stuff. But I actually, it was on GOG a few years ago. I actually played it on GOG as well, but I do remember the remake version as well was really good. Because, like I said, we got a PC later on in life, so the games were quite, come far forward than they was in the early 90s.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I have played the original Pirates, and it's a brilliant game. Brilliant.
You mentioned a game that I say I've played almost every game under the sun. One game I haven't played that I've heard so much about, and you just mentioned is Half-Life.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you want to know something? I've never played Half-Life either. So are you a Half-Life player?
Well, I love Half-Life, but I always compare it to Unreal, because if you ever played Unreal, there's a lot of similarities in how the game goes. Like you're constantly moving. There's hardly any loading screens. It basically loads every, when you get to a different section, you have like a 5-second loading screen. But the original Unreal and Half-Life, for me, them two games, if you love Unreal, you will love Half-Life. And I say it about Unreal to Half-Life. If you love Half-Life, you've got to play Unreal, because them two games, I can't put them apart. I love them both as they are.
Who has Unreal now? Is it Epic or is it?
Yeah, Epic.
Okay, that's what I thought, because it seems like I remember seeing it when I play Fortnite.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone remembers Unreal Tournament, but it's the actual one-player game Unreal where it shines. Because even on the original Unreal one-player game, you got a bot match, which is basically Unreal Tournament, but you're against bots. And then they just turned that into an online shooter, pretty much.
How tough are the bots?
You can change the difficulties, but they are quite hard. They are quite accurate as well.
That's interesting to me, because in Fortnite they've got bots in the actual games now, in the what do you call it, the battle royale. And so if you happen to get against a bot team, you can wipe out a team of bots really quick. Just boom, they're gone. They're really bad. That's why I wondered if they were like that in Unreal.
Because Joe, for me, I sometimes it's been a while, but I used to play CS:GO a lot, and I would practice against the bots, and it got to a point where even though I had it on like the most extreme difficulty and all that. Now, granted, I was a casual CS:GO player. I'd only play like Dust 2, just that particular layout, just because it's a good layout. It's a classic layout. But playing against all bots, I'm able to take out the team just because they're predictable. I don't know how to explain it. Like you know, if you play against the bots and all that, and I mean they're programmed to follow whatever, and it just it gets to a point where it's predictable. Whereas like the human element and all that, unless you get familiar with somebody's habits and all that, you know, I mean, what is it? You got some people just that are unpredictable. You know, I mean, they're unpredictable, or they'll play like they'll think more like a team. Like me, whenever I play CS:GO, I will, you know, if I've got a, crappy, like if I've died a bunch and I don't have enough money to get better weapons, I'll say, you know what, I'm going to be a pawn. Just go in, be the one to rush in and just spray people and all that, and that, you know, take the loss and all that. But at least I damage the other people. If that makes any sense, because it's about the team winning. So, you know, that's one tactic. But it's been a while since I played CS:GO. But
so something we hadn't touched on, maybe when we introduced you, we should have. So you have over 40,000 followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little about what you do on Twitter and what's going on with the big following? I know you're involved in some things with gaming.
Yeah, it's a big community on Twitter. If you love video games and you find our community on there, it's really, really good. A lot of people just like me. Anyone who, if I ask one of my followers to come on the show, you can ask him the same questions. He's just going to get as any interesting answers what I give. You know, the community on there is brilliant, and I think a lot of people will look at Twitter. It's like we're talking about the Mega Drive and the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Either one or the other. You've got Facebook and you've got Twitter.
Yeah.
But if you just search out for the community, I use Twitter as my non-personal one. I use Facebook as my personal one, where I speak to my friends, to my brother in Australia and stuff like that. Whereas Twitter, it's completely fandom. Anything I want to talk about gaming, I go onto Twitter and speak to all my followers about it. And if you're not on there for the gaming, you know, like, I don't see, if gaming wasn't there, I probably wouldn't be on Twitter. Pretty much.
No, that's, well, I mean, so Joe, I'm actually I won't talk about this too much, but I'm also a Linux user, and I actually follow a lot of people within that community and all that stuff. So the same thing, same thing goes for games too, you know, about, you know, having, you know, chats with people that you normally wouldn't be able to connect with otherwise. Mm-hmm. So, no, I hear you on that.
Yeah, I think it's good at the lockdown as well, because obviously everyone's at home. Like in our country, I've only left the house, I think, twice in a month. So I'm playing on the video games and sharing my experiences and talking to people who are in the same situation as me. We've got nothing better to do, so why not just play some video games? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I mean, you know, I'm actually working from home and all that, and it's just, you know, well, granted, I've been I actually work in healthcare, so, and I work for the payables and supply chain part of healthcare. So it's been very interesting with what I've been doing, and I've been really, really extremely busy on that. But I mean, heck, as of late, all I've been doing is concentrating. Actually, last night I was able to get some time to myself and play some burger time and all that. But I've actually been practicing on Donkey Kong. But no, I hear you. It's just like a lot of my friends and all that are in the same situation as me. Like my brother, he you know, he was in hospitality food services, and you know, he's lost his job. So what is he going to do? He's just going to hang out at the house and play video games pretty much. I mean, that's all he can do. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that's, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was going to say, John was asking the people out there if we got any questions for Retr0joe out here. For Retr0joe.
Yeah, I'm multitasking since I'm not talking so much, so I'm trying to do some other things.
Righto. So okay, so the Unreal tournament. That's what your first like whenever you got your own PC and all that. That's what you were into. Any other PC games then?
Medal of Honor,
Oh
Allied
yeah,
Assault.
Moha. Yeah,
Love that.
yeah, love that.
I got
too.
that for my birthday, I think in 2002, and it's really funny actually. The online on that is quite good as well. I think if you'd like games like CS:GO, if you can give it a try, I think the servers are still. I know they took the servers down a couple of years ago, but it's still quite popular, and people have got their own servers on that game still. So if you got the original not Unreal, Medal of Honor, try the online mode on there. It's brilliant. The other PC games I love, I was saying to John last week as well, SimCity 2000.
Yes.
I love that game.
Me too.
Again, we'd never had a PC, so we actually had it on for the Super Nintendo and for the PlayStation, and we never got to play. We only played the proper version when we got a PC in '99. But I hold SimCity 2000, the PS1, close to my heart because that was the closest we could get, and we played it all the time. Same goes with I had it on there somewhere. Theme Hospital. Again, we played that on the PlayStation before we had it on the PC. Theme Park, we played that on the Super Nintendo. Syndicate as well. That was another one we had for the Super Nintendo. Because all the PC games that I love are the ones that we had on the consoles, pretty much.
Go. Wow. Nah, it's, for me, X-Wing. Did you ever play that? X-Wing or TIE Fighter? Or X-Wing versus TIE Fighter?
I don't think I played that one. I remember playing, was it Rebel Assault? I remember playing that one.
So Rebel Assault was basically great game, definitely a great game. But Rebel Assault was actually a rail game, meaning that it was, obviously it was like all pre-rendered footage, and you would shoot things and all that stuff. But it was, everything was, you couldn't move the ship freely or whatever. It was on like, it's a rail game, like you could, like on a rail, like on a train or whatever, and you can only go one direction. Believe it or not, yes. X-Wing and I think TIE Fighter too is on GOG.com. And runs very, very, very well on both PC, like MS Windows and Linux and all that. And actually, I've got my copy to where, I'll play it. I'll play it just like in his old school. So basically what it is that it's basically an X-Wing simulator. Basically, not just X-Wing, though. There was also the Y-Wing, the B-Wing, the A-Wing. So basically, it was a Star Wars flight simulator. X-Wing was for the Rebel Alliance, and of course TIE Fighter was for the Empire. And so you got to fly the different fly and do the missions of the different spacecraft for the Rebel Alliance and also for the Empire. So excellent set of games, and they're cheap too, really cheap. So
I love point and click adventure games as well.
Okay, you're boy, man after my own heart, man after my. Okay, so what kind of person are you? Are you a LucasArts kind of person or Lucasfilm kind of person? Either or. Actually, you know what? There's three: LucasArts, Lucasfilm, and then of course Sierra. Now, granted, there's like other point and click adventure game studios too as well, but there was pretty much only two whenever everybody grew up during the 90s. So which one are you, Joe?
That's a hard one to choose. I could say you're a bit scummy there with that question, but So a bit scummy. You call me saying I was a bit scummy there. So, John, do you know that's a joke? Just to explain, if you don't mind me explaining, Joe. Well, actually, why did you say that? Because I know why you said it. Why did you say scummy? See, I think if you're talking about TIE Fighter, I'm guessing you're going to be a Lucas guy.
Believe it or not, I'm actually a Sierra fan. So, but the thing is that no, I love that. So. the Scum, you saying that was really, really funny. I don't know if you meant it or not, but Scum was actually the engine that was used. What was it? Script creation utility for Maniac Mansion. I think that was the program that was made by Lucasfilm, which became LucasArt, which made all those point and click adventure games like Monkey Island, the Scum engine. So saying Scummy, no, I love that. That was really good. Really, really good. So, see, I love both.
I can't really choose. Like, I love Police Quest. I love. I think Space Quest though. If I could choose, I've got to say Space Quest for me. The humor's there. It's perfect. I love Space Quest. Police Quest and King's Quest are great. And I do love the story for Police Quest, especially Police Quest 2, I think is my favourite. But Space Quest is up there. I can't, like... I would also go for, I would say, a third, company. Revolution. With Broken Sword and Beneath a Steel Sky. I think they came after, but I love Space Quest. I love Police Quest. I love the Indiana Jones games.
Yep.
All games like that.
So here's the thing. I played. Because I have never beaten. I've never beaten Last Crusade. Actually, John, now that I'm thinking of it, that would be a good game to stream. Actually, point and click adventure. Indianapolis not Indianapolis. I'm from Indianapolis. Indiana Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and then I've never played Fate of Atlantis. So, played Last Crusade a bunch. I got as far as I could got pretty far because the Last Crusade actually really follows the movie to a T. So you have a point and click adventure game, and you kind of already have an idea of what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to grab. So that's really cool. So that makes it a lot easier instead of going through like the Moon logic, which is what Sierra games are actually a victim to. But no, that's really, really cool. So Space Quest, obviously the two guys from Andromeda, I'm sure you're familiar with their work and all that stuff. And I get that because I'm never got into the Space Quest games. I was a big Al Lowe fan. So I was really into, probably shouldn't have been, and probably that's why my humor is so warped, Leisure Suit Larry. Because I was playing those games at like 14 or 15, and I just probably not the right thing that my father did. Probably out of all things, that was probably bad parenting. It was like, oh, this looks interesting. It's Sierra. It's a point and click adventure game. Oh wow, these are adult situations, picking up women and all that stuff, and But I will say that. I definitely love the humor, so I totally get the Space Quest, the dig on Space Quest. I totally get it. So
yeah.
So did you ever play Leisure Suit Larry then?
I played later on in life. Like I explained before, where my dad got me Doom when I was 8. So later on in life, I played Leisure Suit Larry, but I think I even had the PlayStation 2 game Leisure Suit Larry.
Oh, God. I know
that was quite awful.
Yeah, that one was that was when Sierra. Actually, I don't even know if Sierra existed except in name, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember when that came. I can't remember exactly the year that game came out because that one was bad compared to what had. Now, the rhythm games and the different type of like mini games and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, I can see, like, if you were looking at it from that aspect, it's fun, but comparing that to what had come previously, like if you're talking about, probably I can tell you what my top 2 favorite Leisure Suit Larry games are. The 6th one, which was Shape Up or Slip Out, and then 7th one was Love for Sale. So, yeah, excellent games, but just that one, what was it? Magnum Cum Laude or whatever. Horrible.
Yeah, that was the one. Magnum Cum Laude.
Oh God, horrible freaking game.
Yeah.
Just you know what the thing is, if you gave it to someone who never had played the games previously, they'd be like, well, what's the, like, oh, this is just a bunch of mini games. It's not, and really honestly the mini games are not that bad, but just God, compare the humor, the quality and humor went downhill compared to what had come before. So that's just a bummer. But
yeah, if you've never played Space Quest, give it a go. I think you would love it.
So I've thought about this. Should I go with? I've been thinking about starting with 4. Would that be okay? Starting in the middle, or?
I would say start from the beginning.
Oh, so you're talking about going text parser, right? Using the. I mean, I'm cool with that. I've obviously I've beaten all Leisure Suit Larry game. Actually, I take that back. I never beaten the second one. But I'm used to the text parser and all that, so that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Well, they redid them. I think they put different where you've got the blocky, like the Leisure Suit Larry, where they're just walking along like that. They redid them where they cartooned them up a bit with voice acting. If you get a chance to play them, if you don't want to go back to proper old school, try them. The comedy's there. It's brilliant. I think it's a mishmash. If you love Retr0joe Shoot Larry, if you like Star Wars,
yeah, absolutely.
It's just basically both of them together.
I've been saying I'm not a big point and click guy, but I just been thinking about this, and you mentioned GOG.com. I've been playing a lot of GOG.com lately. Heroes of Might and Magic 3, which is all point and click as far as the control goes. So would you call that a point and click game?
So Joe, you have a go, because I have no idea about Might and Magic. So,
well, it's like would you call Fallout, the original Fallout, point and click? It's the same sort of, because you're basically just pointing a cursor and clicking, aren't you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so. I would say a point and click adventure is like you've got a narrative there, you've got a story there. If you click on something, the main character will describe what it is, and sometimes break the fourth wall and talk to the camera.
Yeah. So like John, so here's the deal, because like to what Joe said, the goal of a point and click adventure game is that you are basically, you're 3 things in a point and click adventure game, especially a really good one. You are the actor, you're the protagonist, you are the director, so think of it as like a movie directing the actor to act and all that. And then of course you're the audience too. So like, you direct your actor to do whatever that needs to be done. And then you are also the audience, and you get to watch whatever the outcome is of that. So that's basically what it is. Now, some games that kind of, I don't know if you want to say, because I've talked to some people, like what is it? There are some games that definitely are point and click and kind of are like that, that are like from a first person perspective. Like, did you ever play Shivers, Retr0joe? Okay.
No.
Hard game to get into. It's good. It's basically a Myst clone made by Sierra. Actually, they made 2 of them, actually. In fact, they made 2 of them. And since you're into retro gaming, do you know who on YouTube? His name is Metal Jesus. He's a retro.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Okay. So he actually used to work. So this would be a reason to check out Metal Jesus' stuff. He was actually an employee for Sierra Online during the 90s, during like the peak of Sierra Online. And he actually was in the video game, or the adventure game, Shivers 2, actually. He was actually in a character in a band, and he actually is a guitarist and all that stuff. And that's why they did it. They said, "Hey, you're a good," they in the Sierra office. It was just something as casual as like, "Hey, you." He had the long hair and looked like some '90s alternative grunge rock guy, living in Seattle, Washington. I don't know if he was in Seattle, Washington, or Portland, Oregon, but somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. But like literally, they pointed at him and said, "Hey, you got that look. Could you be in a band in our game?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so like that's what happened. He actually was in a video game for the company that he worked for. So,
Awesome.
yeah, check out that. Actually, it's an excellent video. But John, back to your question about what makes a point and click adventure. It has to have, I would say that it's safe to say that a point and click adventure has to have those three elements where you are the protagonist, whether it's being done in a first person like Seventh Guest. Did you ever play the Seventh Guest, Retr0joe? It's a puzzle game.
I don't think so.
Or the 11th Hour. Both great games made by the same company, Trilobite, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is now defunct and all that. I think actually they made a iOS or Android port of Seventh Guest, and it's absolutely excellent.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, check it out. But it has to have those three basic elements where you are the protagonist, whether that's from a first person or a third person point of view. 2, you are the director. You're telling the protagonist what to do, what to click on, and all that. And then 3, there's some kind of outcome from that. Like, the story progresses based on your actions. If that makes sense.
So you could kind of say it is then.
So tell us about it then.
Well, it's Heroes of Might and Magic. They're because Might and Magic is its own series as well.
Right.
It's the same company, same what do you want to call it? Same universe, I guess you'd say, but it's a different type of game. So the original Might and Magic and Might and Magic 2, 3, 4, 5, blah 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 blah. They're kind of more similar to the other games of that type, like Wizardry, Bard's Tale, blah blah blah. But Heroes of Might and Magic was kind of unique. It was a newer. How about King's Bounty? Have you heard of that game?
No.
Okay, Heroes of Might and Magic. Well, Heroes of Might and Magic is kind of a King's Bounty clone, and it got really big though for a while. 3 seems to be the most popular, but there was also, I think there's been 6 or 7 of them at least. They have scenarios. You could do a campaign also, or you can do individual scenarios. And if you pick a scenario or a campaign, either one, it'll come up with it'll show like a text of, like it'll say, your father, king, whatever, has left you his kingdom. But now these other barons are vying for control. You have to fend them off. And so you start out with 1 or 2 towns and 1 or 2 little heroes that you kind of control. And you click around where you want them to go. And as you do that, you gather resources and things like that through the clicking, on where you want them to go. And you can also, that's how you battle too. You click on the enemy and travel to them.
Would you say that the story of it is it linear? Because that's one thing, is that a point and click adventure game, that's kind of like what's the downfall of them, is that, yeah, you may have like a little bit of variation, but pretty much like the story, the end of the story was the same. Which in Sierra games, it was either you die, you find many ways to die. There's only 2 ways a Sierra game ends. You either have the good ending, or you find one of the 1,000 ways to die. That's pretty much it.
And that's kind of this, you either win or you die. In most cases. Now they do have alternative scenarios where you can lose if you run out of time, or you can if you lose a specific hero, or you might have to be the first one to accumulate so much wealth, or they have different ways you can win, different scenarios, but most of them are victory by attrition. You wipe out all the other enemies, but again, it's all point and click.
I don't know. Sounds more to me like more of like a strategy game, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it is a strategy game, that's for sure.
With point and click adventure, it's like you're a detective. You could be thrusted into a situation and you don't know how to get there. For example, you could be locked in a room and there's no key, and you've got to figure out how to get out of the room. You can find items, you can mix items together, you can, combine items and stuff like that.
Yep.
To me, they always bit like detective, and you notice a lot of them actually have, they need to get to the bottom of something. There's always something they need to get to the bottom of. It's like they need to get there, they get to the end as any way that they can. And it's a bit like, I'm thinking about Ultima now, if you've ever played Ultima 7, because that's the closest thing I would say that's a point and click that isn't a point and click, because you've got to get different items and do different things for it. But I do think with point and click adventure games, it feels like a movie sometimes. If you could do everything right perfectly from start to finish, it'd be like watching a movie.
Yeah, that's absolutely it, John. Hi, Rob. Rob1717 says hello. So hello, Rob1717. Glad you could join us there. We got Retr0joe here. Yeah, that's the deal, John. Is that it is more like a movie. Doing that. Now, granted, of course, there's competitive. People have gone so far as to become competitive with point and click adventure games. Like, I saw some guy on Twitch who was like streaming something where he was playing some Sierra point and click game, and he was trying to hit every death. Like, he had every death cataloged, and I think that a new track or something. I think it was actually a new track created on Twin Galaxies or something like that, where he was trying to go for, I don't know if it was speed, maybe it was speed runs, I don't know, but he was trying to get like every possible conceivable death. I think for King's Quest V, actually, I think that's what it was. Just trying to do something that ridiculous. And actually, the thing is, I'm glad that he did it, because there were some deaths that I saw that I was like, well, I didn't even know that was a possibility. So
yeah, there's so many deaths on them games. I don't think I've hit every death. I remember more modern point and click adventures as well that are really good. Discworld and Sam and Max.
I know Sam and Max. Yep, Lucas.
Discworld is excellent if you've never played that. It's got the comedy there, like King's Quest as well, and Space Quest and Leisure Suit. It's a really good game. It's all animated as well, just like Broken Sword. It's all animated, and them games are beautiful to look at. And if you were watching it if you didn't know if it was a game, if it was just playing, you would actually think you're watching a cartoon on the TV.
Right. So DClink24 has just said, so we played Doom. How about Layers of Fear? What is Layers of Fear? John, do you know what Layers of Fear is?
I do not, actually.
That was from DClink24. So we played Doom. How about Layers of Fear? So, yeah.
Layers of Fear. Oh, looks like maybe a horror game.
Let me check here. I'm gonna let me get this.
It's on PS4, Switch, Xbox One, Windows, Linux, Mac.
Oh, is it new game?
Let's see. When did it come out? 2016.
You see, I'm not anything past 2010. I might not know.
Let's see. Well, Scary Game on the Xbox is where she played it.
Which is the one where it's set in hell? Is it set in hell, that one? I remember one where there's some pretty freaky game that's set in hell.
That sounds familiar. Agony, maybe?
Could be that one.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to have to check it out as well.
What do you think? Oh, wow. Look at those pictures.
Yeah.
A little gory, huh?
Oh, man, look at that one. I know, John, there's a little bit of delay for you there, but I'm just looking at that there, and I'm like, whoa. Huh. That's nuts. This is on Linux?
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to check that out then.
So that looks kind of similar to a point and click, but it might not. I don't know if it is or not.
This, if I had to take a guess, this looks more probably yeah, this looks maybe like in the vein of like Seventh Guest or Myst or something like that. That's what I would say. Just looking at it, Layers of Fear is what happens. I mean, because it looks like you're looking at things from a first person perspective. Seventh Guest, John, I'll bring that. Joe, if you're watching and all that, I'll bring up Seventh Guest because that actually is an excellent game. And like when I'm looking at this, and this kind of reminds me of that. Hold on a sec. Now, granted, remember this is from the early mid '90s, so you know it's the premise is that you are a guest. You are actually the seventh guest. You're trapped in a house, and this house was made by a man who.
Oh, that's kind of similar.
Yeah, this is from early to mid '90s, but you're in this house. He is a man who made dolls, toys for children, but also he made puzzles, and the house has like different puzzle areas and all that. Like right here is like where you have to like some kind of like a portion puzzle or something like that. Let me see what else we got here. One thing that was unique about it is that it had a full motion video and all that. I mean, it was pretty much full motion video for the time and all that. Actors in basically in front of a blue screen and all that, but it was groundbreaking. I think even Bill Gates said something whenever this had came out. He said, this is the Seventh Guest is the expectation for what is possible with video games and all that because of just all the crazy creepy stuff. I mean, it is. I remember playing it as a kid. It scared the hell out of me.
Just looking at the graphics, there was a TV show in the early 90s, late 80s called Nightmare in this country. And it was basically a point and click adventure game, but like real life, where some kid will put a blindfold on and you've got the team of other kids talking through a microphone, telling him what to do. And I don't think it was in the States, but if you check out Nightmare, and it's over here, it's a cult classic, and it is basically a point and click adventure game, but with you controlling a real person. And the graphics look exactly the same as that, where the people come to life, if you know what I mean. They'd be a still image, and then when they go into the room, they would actually start moving.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Don't know if I can find it.
So real life point and click.
So okay,
pretty much.
It was called Nightmare, you said?
Yeah, and it had one of the catchiest theme tunes ever. I think it was Nightmare spelled K-N-I.
Oh, okay.
Nightmare TV show, yeah.
Got it.
And if you look at the graph, it was classic.
Oh, look at that. That's different.
It just felt like that. If you look at the way he's got the helmet on, that's the kid. I think he was basically just stood in the green screen room or a blue screen room, and they tell him to grab stuff and combine things and stuff like that. But that's what that reminds me of, that seventh guest.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. All right, going back to chat here. So let's see here. D Clink, did anyone ever see the movie Stay Alive? I believe it was 2006, where they play a game, and if they die, then they die in real life. Reminded me of these games, laugh aloud. I'm not familiar with that movie. Rob1717, I've seen Stay Alive. Frankie Muniz, right? I've seen Staying Alive. I'm not able.
Get Out of Malcolm in the Middle, is it?
Yeah. I think
I do recognise it. I think I might have seen that. I can't remember it though.
I might have. That sounds somewhat familiar. Hmm.
So, anyways, well, heck. Well, does anybody out there have any questions for Retro Joe? Anybody out there? Anybody got any game recommendations for us? You know, I'm gonna have to check out this nightmare thing, Retro Joe, because I've never seen anything like that before. Never. So
Yeah, it's worth a check out. The theme tune is catchy as heck as well. I've just found this Netsmith that.
So you mentioned Ultima. Did you play any of the older Ultima games?
I played Ultima 7 was my favourite one. I didn't really get into the other ones, to be fair. I think I tried them, but playing Ultima 7, the first time I played it, I fell in love with that game, and I couldn't really get into the other ones as much because graphically it was different, and I just couldn't. I don't know why, even though I didn't even know any about the story about the Avatar or anything like that, but I just loved that game.
Rob1717 asked, "You guys ever play Granny?" Laugh out loud. Don't understand the question, man. So
There's a game called Granny's Garden I've played. That's quite weird.
Right.
Granny's Garden.
That was on the BBC Micro, you know, what we were talking about last week.
Oh, okay.
The Sinclair and all that?
Yeah. This were a computer what were put into schools. It was basically an Acorn Electron, but it was authorised by BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, and it was for educational purposes. But it was just, looking back at that game now, it's quite spooky.
Right. Well, heck. Well.
Oh, it's a mobile.
It's a mobile. Well, Retro Joe, thank you for joining us and all that. And you know, right now, and I do apologize because I've got to wake up early tomorrow and all that stuff because I've got to be up early and I've got to build a query and all that. So thank you for joining us and all that, you know, and thank you everybody for tuning in and all that stuff. We really, really appreciate it. Retro Joe, you know, hope you tune in next week, because next week, just want to let everybody know, we are actually going to be streaming on Tuesday. Is that right, John?
Yeah. We'll have Armando Gonzalez on.
Yeah, former world record holder for Galaga, overall record holder as of late January, or not as of late January. Well, he was became the former champ as of January and all that. So he's going to be on next Tuesday at 10 p.m. So we'd hope for everybody to join us that day and check us out and all that. And Retro Joe, again, thank you very much for coming on with us, talking about retro video games. We really appreciate it, sir.
Anytime.
Alrighty, so let's close this out. A little bit of the piano.
Oh, maybe we can get Retro Joe to sing.
Well, Retro Joe, you did say that, what was it? It was a classic. The first song that I learned how to play on the piano was Only You by Yazoo. So, you down for singing a little bit?
Maybe.
Dear Silent Hills.
Looking from a window above, it's like a
Story of love.
Can
Can
you
you hear me?
Came back only yesterday. I'm moving farther away. Want you near me. All
All I
I
needed was the one you say. All I needed was the one you get.
and all I ever knew. Only you. All right. right. Thank you for joining us, Retr0joe. Really appreciate it and all that. And definitely I'm going to check out this Nightmare, actually, as soon as we get off, because I'd like to. Looks like there's a bunch of YouTube stuff on there for that. So, and all that good stuff. So thank you again for joining us. And John, take it easy, sir. So I'll talk to y'all later.
Yep.
And
you got a couple more Recs there too, by the way, just so you
Rex,
recommendations.
Oh, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and Layers of Fear for horror game.
I've got this as well before we go. Resident Evil 2 and the N64.
Excellent. Alrighty, so we are ending the stream.